Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to Life Matters with Michele. I am your host, Michele Irby Johnson. So excited to come to you in your homes, in your cars, on your computers, your personal devices, however you hear me, however you see me. It's exciting to hear and see all of you on today. We know that Life Matters is a platform that we use for our community to talk about what matters to you, to you. And today, my very, 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 very special guest is Miss Tamara Smith. Hello, my dear.
Hi, darling. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you on the show. And for our listeners' sake, today's discussion is going to be the fact that you are a survivor of breast cancer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle, for extending the invitation to allow me to come on to your platform and share my story. So, thank you very much for that.
You are
Excited to be here.
You are so welcome. Let me introduce you to our audience. I'm going to read your bio, and then we're going to jump right into our discussion, our interview, our fellowship, whatever you want to call it on today. Miss Tamara Smith is a member of the Park Church, where she's been a member since 2001. She's involved in her women's ministry, outreach ministry, and cancer support ministry. She was diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer in May 2015, and she is now active with the American Cancer Society and serves on the leadership teams for Relay for Life and Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. Um, she is she is she says, I'm a reach to recovery mentor and for newly diagnosed breast cancer patients. That's amazing. That is amazing. She is part of my generations and Black African American team member networks. Wow, wonderful. I really thank God that I have you on the show, because everybody doesn't necessarily know, because everybody's not as aware. October is not only domestic violence awareness, but it's breast cancer awareness and HIV awareness and autism awareness, and it's a whole list. So I wanted to have someone on the show who could talk about not just breast cancer from a medical standpoint or from the perspective of somebody who's giving information, but I really wanted to focus on someone who's actually been there.
Absolutely.
And so that is why when we had our family call, for those of you who all don't know, this is my cousin. And we were on the family call a couple of months ago, and she mentioned that she was trying to figure out, she had breast cancer. And I was like, oh my God, I could have her on the show, not to exploit, but just to talk about your experience. So let's jump right into this discussion. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have Miss Tamara Smith here, and she's discussing her survival of breast cancer. So what was your first indication that you believe that the lump that you found was cancerous?
Well, to be honest, Michelle, I had gone and had done the mammograms since age 40, which is the time frame that they want you to start your mammograms.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any issues. Everything had come back, well. And all of a sudden, I kind of, felt a knot, and I was like, okay, well, it's a knot. I said, I've had my mammogram. I said, let me at least go and get it checked out. And went to my primary care physician, and she says, well, I'm going to send you to Charlotte Radiology, let them take a look and find out what's going on. So they did that. They did the check. They did a biopsy. And then a couple of days later, they came back and they said, well, the biopsy showed that you do have breast cancer. And it didn't really, I was at work, so it really didn't register with me at that point in time that's what happened. So my doctor had called, and she kind of alluded to the same, my primary care had kind of alluded to the same thing. And I'm like, and it's still not registering with me. I had a patient, I had a nurse navigator that kind of helped me kind of, fill in the gaps and kind of help me understand as to what was taking place. Because at that point, I was, pretty much numb. I didn't really expect that. That wasn't news I was expecting.
Absolutely. And that's something to really scrutinize, because we're all told, we have to do our monthly checkups, how to do it, what's the technique. And for some of us, we're just naturally fibrous. Some of us just have natural lumpy breasts, if I can just put that out there like that. And so everything we feel may not be something of concern. But what's striking to me is that you had just had a mammogram
Correct.
and they didn't detect it, or did they overlook it, or you know what I mean? So it makes me wonder, how did they miss that?
Correct. I mean, given the fact that this was maybe like a couple months after the fact, so I'm like, it was a little puzzling for me because, like I said, having had that done, you're not expecting to hear, okay, this is what's taking place in your body. And I mean, I try to be very a pretty good advocate about knowing what's going on in my body, making sure that I'm going in and getting the necessary checks and things of that nature. So that was news that I was not, not really expecting, given the fact that I knew there was known, cancer in my family, but not breast cancer. So, I wasn't expecting that news.
And I'm sure that that was a shocker. And again, they tell us often to come on and do the what did call it, self check, buddy self check, and you call a buddy and you say, hey, have you checked yourself? And most of us women, I'll say most of us, I won't say all of us, but most of us, we're pretty keen on what's going on in our bodies. If we feel something, an ache or a pain that's not familiar, we're like, okay, well, what is this? But to find something, and after only 2 months or a few months after having been screened, it's a little takes you it's a little off-putting, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's very alarming. I mean, you're not expecting that. I mean, that's one of the things that I do try to let women know, particularly those that I mentor, let them know, make sure that whatever, even now that you have, been diagnosed with breast cancer and things of that nature, they have a once you go through the whole treatment rigmarole, they have a survivorship post care. Make sure you're going to that, making sure that you know what's going on with your body, making sure that you're, having someone, check and make sure there's no issues or anything like that going on with your body. But I mean, we definitely have to be our best advocate when it comes down to our health. And I
Yes.
always say that health is wealth, because once you lose your health, that's pretty much an alarming or a big issue there. So, I mean, I definitely try to let people know, particularly my family and my friends, hey, you see what I've gone through, you see what I've been through, as it pertains to the treatments and all of that. I definitely would never want anyone to have to go through that process. I mean, it takes a lot out of you. Physically, it takes a lot out of you. For some, financially, it takes a lot out of you, mentally, because you're having to really program your mind to get
Mhm.
prepared for whatever may come down the pipe, whether that treatment, whatever that may be.
Right, right. So when they did the biopsy, did they tell you at that time it was malignant? Did they tell you what stage it was? I mean, how did they determine what stage you were? I know it has to do with the mutation, but what how did they tell you, okay, we found something, we did the biopsy, but
Mhm.
this is, where you are in it. You know what I mean?
Right. I really didn't know that information until I actually went. I had pretty much at that point in time, they set you up with an oncologist and with a surgical oncologist. Once you meet with the surgical oncologist, they kind of let you know at that point, based off of their findings, what your stage is. At that point, I was a stage 3. So, they were trying to determine, okay, what are the next best steps at this point? What are your options? And one of the things that they did that was a determining factor as to how they would proceed with my care was doing a DNA panel testing. They wanted to determine whether or not if this was just regular, where they can proceed forward with chemo, or if this was a gene mutation. If it was a gene mutation, which means it was genetic somewhere in my family line, and they'll kind of steer your treatment a little bit different. Well, I was BRCA2, and with that BRCA2, it is a genetic mutation, and in that it only doesn't just um, entail breast cancer, but it also entails pancreatic cancer, cervical cancer as well. So so it kind of lets where you stand, and if you're susceptible to any other types of cancers as well.
So in hearing that, because I was going to ask you whether or not you were BRCA1 or BRCA2. So
Hmm.
in hearing that, and these are not questions of insensitivity. What did you? How did that make you feel to know that it was an inherited gene? That it wasn't something that necessarily that you did with your diet, or how did that make you feel to know that it had didn't just attach itself to breast cancer, but there were these other outliers that could possibly affect your health?
Right. Well, it made me feel very nervous because one of the things that I saw that was very alarming was pancreatic cancer, and my grandmother had passed the year prior to my diagnosis in July of 2014 from pancreatic cancer. So, saying that and saying that, cancer be a part of that gene mutation. I mean, I was very nervous, and I thought all kind of thoughts of thinking that, okay, oh God, I have breast cancer, could later down the line, I may be susceptible to pancreatic. So, I mean, you have a lot of different thoughts. You have a lot of different things that's going through your mind. What are the treatments going to be like? What is my survival rate? And just all kind of things at that point, as far as like what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You said that your grandmother passed from pancreatic cancer. My grandmother on my mother's side, my mother's mother, died from pancreatic cancer. And now my
Wow.
mother's sister has pancreatic cancer. And so now that makes me believe that I need to go and see if I have that gene that would, cause it to run it within me or my sisters, because that's close in my line. You know what I mean? And so,
Absolutely.
and so now to hear that it's on both sides, just like, high blood pressure is on both sides, diabetes is on both sides, obesity is on both sides, so that makes me predisposed to a lot of different things that I need to be on the alert about. And so
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that. So I think I'm going to have my doctor run a test. I mean, you don't really want to know, but you really want to know
Right.
what may be coming down the pike. Is this going to be something that's going to affect me in my 60s, my 70s, my 80s? You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I'm glad you said that, because that'll help me know that if they ask, I'll say, well, yeah, it runs on both sides, because your grandmother was who, uh, not Aunt Carrie, but whose mother?
She is now. This is Aunt B. So this is my, yeah. So my
Oh,
so Aunt Carolee and my grandmother were sisters.
right.
So and in knowing that, Michelle, I think you were on the call whenever we had, where I recently found out that where that I guess breast cancer. We had two aunts that had metastatic breast cancer prior
Yes.
to their dying on their death certificate. You were able to see that both of them had metastatic. So I was kind of, I guess, relieved to kind of see that as well, because I knew that, breast cancer didn't run that I knew of on my mother's side or my father's side. So, seeing that information that Lynn provided, I mean, that kind of brought so much relief, because in your mind, you're thinking, oh God, where does this come from? Because I mean, it doesn't just come from just anywhere, especially
Right.
when you're looking at a genetic mutation.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of brought some peace of mind, because I mean, I spent what, 4 years, 5 years almost, not knowing until she provided that information. So that was a little bit of a relief for me at that point, to at least know that it did come from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, because I know that they say that breast cancer, somebody's asked the question, what are some risk factors for developing breast cancer? And we know, of course, it could be hereditary, but,
Hmm.
smoking,
Yes.
lack of exercise, obesity, um, uh, breastfeeding, excessive stress. So there are a lot of different things, and it really depends on how your body responds. So it may be like, if you have a daughter, that it would skip her. It may
Hmm.
be, you know, her daughter's daughter. You know what I mean? So there
Exactly.
are a lot of different circumstances that could cause it to show up in one and not in the other. So your mom is I get so confused with these names.
Velra.
Right. I was gonna call her nickname. I don't want to do that online.
Oh, that's okay. She goes by that too.
I was gonna say, sister baby.
She goes by that too. She knows the Maryland DC family. Pretty
All
much that's how they know her. So yeah,
right.
exactly.
So I don't know if she has been checked for BRCA, or if she knows anything, because again, it may have skipped her and then got to you. You know what I mean? Did
Right.
they say anything about the course of the hereditary mutation? Does it hit every generation, or is it something that's more sporadic? Did they give you any information with regard to that?
They didn't give me any information as it pertains to that, Michelle. However, what they did state was, now to kind of go back to your question and backpedal. No, my mom has not been checked to my knowledge, nor has my sister been checked, which I have told them it would be wise for them to go ahead and at least be tested and checked just to see. And I know some people are very leery and they don't want to know. They feel, oh, out of sight, out of mind. The less I know, the better.
Mm,
But when they take a look at everything that I have gone through and see my journey in treatment after treatment, surgery after surgery, you want to know what's going on in your body. I mean, some people, they're very leery. They're like, okay, well, I don't care to know that. I mean, if it happens, but I have definitely, reached out to them and have told them on numerous occasions, hey, you do know that this is a genetic mutation. Go get the panel testing, have that checked, see where you are. And, I've seen people that have, I know when I think about that, I think about Angelina Jolie, how she went and she had the check and she found out that she did have the genetic mutation, I think BRCA1, and
mhm,
she ended up going in and having
yep,
a double bilateral mastectomy.
mhm.
So, some people go to that, to that extent to kind of preserve and to protect their health. And some people, they're out of sight, out of mind. But, I will definitely implore your listeners out there to kind of, know your body, go have your checks. I mean, one thing as far as African American people, we pretty much are kind of predisposed to a lot of different diseases, more so than any other of our like our Caucasian, Asian counterparts. So we definitely have to be very vigilant and be our best advocate in making sure that we're going ahead and maintaining our health.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is good. So we know you. So we know you had the biopsy. How long was the process from them doing the biopsy, finding out that you were stage 3? How long did that take for them to determine? Okay, this is what we're going to have to do for you. But one of our questions from our audience says, were you um, did you have fibrocystic breast or um, fibroadenomas before you were diagnosed? So, because I know me, if I'm putting myself out there, I've
Mm-hmm.
always been lumpy, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just the nature of my anatomy. And so, I don't know if that was something that you were predisposed to, or this was just that one time that you felt something abnormal.
Yeah, it was that one time that I felt something abnormal. I know with our breasts, I know as we age, women as we age, I know we have very dense breasts, very fibrous breasts. For me, I never had any indication. I never, even with going through getting the mammograms, there was nothing where I ever had to go back in a second time because there was something suspicious. So this was like a one-off situation, where I felt the lump and then had to go in and go through that process. So never had anything, any other issues prior to that.
Wow. Okay, so you did say that you were BRCA2 and you were
Hmm.
stage 3. Now, what type did you have? You had metastatic, or I looked. I had to do my research on all.
Yeah,
So they had ductal carcinoma in situ, invasive ductal, and those that's the cancer that's actually in your the ducts, the milk glands in your
correct.
breast, and then triple negative and inflammatory. So what was yours? I know metastatic typically is stage 4. So what was your prognosis or diagnosis?
I did not have I did not have what was I going to say? I didn't have metastatic. So it wasn't anything that had metastasized outside of the breast. So basically I had what they classified as the most common, which was the invasive ductal carcinoma. So everything was contained within the milk ducts. Nothing went, metastasized to any of my organs. And that's one of the things that they do check.
Okay.
I had a battery. I mean, you go through a battery of different tests and to kind of make sure that nothing has metastasized. Prior to treatment, they make sure that you do an EKG to make sure that your heart can withstand treatment, because some of these treatments that you go through, I mean, they're very, very, very taxing on the body. I mean, one of the ones that I went through was adriamycin cytoxin, which they call the red devil. And with that, they actually, yeah, think about that. Think about you have, and the thing about it is, Michelle, I mean, I don't want to alarm anybody, but I do want to level set and I want to let
No,
people
tell
know.
tell the truth, honey. Tell the truth.
Yeah, I want to level set and let people know this is definitely nothing to play with. we had, whenever I would go to the infusion center, they would have people, these nurses would be in guards and they would have gloves on. Keep in mind, they're protecting themselves from whatever it is that's going to go into your body. So think about that. If they're doing that, just think about that going into your body and all the toxins and everything that they're pushing into your body. So they had, I had adriamycin cytoxin, which I had that for about maybe 12 rounds, well, 6 rounds of that. And they're actually pushing that into into your system. They won't allow you to kind of do like a drip or like a saline drip or whatever, like an IV drip. They actually have to push it because of that. It's that toxic
Oh my
going into
goodness.
your going into your system. So people don't realize. I mean, I think they've made great strides since I've had treatment, but that was one of the ones that just kind of like did me in whenever I went through treatment.
So when you said 6 rounds, what is explain to us what a round looks like? Is that once a week, twice a week, for so many times? I mean, for those of us who don't know what the terminology rounds mean, what does that mean?
Round can mean as far as like how often you're going in for your treatment. So for me, the very first part, and they dictate what your treatment regimen will look like when you meet with your oncology team. So
Mm-hmm.
I did 6 rounds of AC, which I would go in every 2 weeks, and I would get this adriamycin until that time frame ended, and then I would start into the next treatment, which was Taxol, and I would go in. I had like I think 12 treatments, so I would go in every week, once a week. I think for like 12 weeks, and would get that treatment. So
Wow. And so and going back to what you say when they're pushing, because I was in nursing school for like 3 years, and then
mhm,
I had to, because of my back issues, I had to come out of that. So when I'm thinking about pushing, I'm thinking about the syringe,
mhm,
and I'm thinking about it's being forced into your veins.
mhm.
Um, and I'm thinking about the acidity of it, because that type of drug, and for first of all, for it to be called Red Devil, that right there is, I rebuke it.
Amen, amen,
You know,
amen.
the name alone is enough to just make you be like, what? And so I can only imagine now. Now they're pushing it in, so it knows that it's supposed to be a localized treatment. It's going to go directly to the particular area. It's not going to
Yeah,
infuse anywhere else,
right.
or because I know certain chemos that you have affect other organs. So were there any side effects to this treatment, to these rounds of treatment, whether it be the first round of 6 or the second round of 12? Were there any
Mhm.
notable side effects? I mean, I know it sounds like a dumb question, but this is
No, no,
for
no.
our listening audience and for my, for other people's, knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. The thing about it is, I'm glad that you asked me to come here and to talk to your listeners, because the thing about it is, people have to know. Some people are going through treatment. They're blind. They have no idea. They really don't have anyone that they can go and to, ask these questions to. I didn't initially. I had to do my research, so I'm definitely glad to be able to provide this information. So for the adriamycin, whenever I took that treatment, of course, you lose your hair. And they kind of let me know at some point, maybe when I got to the second or third treatment, that I may want to look at maybe cutting off all my hair, because at some point my hair would fall out, and they didn't want it to be such a shock for me. So, of course, one of the side effects is losing your hair. For me, with the adriamycin, you start to see like your nails discoloring. So my nails started turning like a dark, like a black color. As I
Mhm.
got further into my treatment, yes, I start seeing that. You start seeing your nails can lift up, separate from the nail bed to the point where it could come off with treatment. Joint pain, you would have issues with that, and that's one thing. I've always been very, very active. So to see my body go from a level of being active and moving and to a point where I felt, not to sound insensitive, I felt like an old woman. Getting up out of the bed was just a major issue, because my joints, were just very painful. Loss of appetite. You really don't have an appetite, because you would take a treatment, and I would do my treatments on Wednesday, and I would be okay Wednesday. Thursday, I would start to feel a little icky. By the weekend, I'm down for the count. No, I didn't want any food. I didn't want any water. I didn't want anything. I just want to lay there. And keep in mind, during this time, I'm working. So I'm trying to work, not trying to take any time off unless it's for treatment or unless it's for a doctor's appointment. So your body just goes through a wide variety of different things at this point. So I mean, I saw it all: joint pain, discoloration. Didn't really feel any chest pain or anything like that, but just just those common issues there.
What was, did you have similar or different side effects with the second treatment, with the one that was 12 rounds? Was it similar or?
The Taxol wasn't as bad there. Um, and when I say that, I would go in every week. I was able to kind of at least eat a little bit with the Taxol. The
Mhm,
only thing that I really complain about that is that I know, there was a separation from the nail bed with your nails, and there would be like a little liquid. And I don't mean to gross your listeners out, but a little liquid that would kind of ooze from the
mhm.
nail bed with Taxol. But I didn't really see a lot of major issues with Taxol as opposed to how I did with the Adriamycin Cytoxin. So
Did they give you any suggestions in terms of trying to save the nail, or just let it be? Like wrap them with gauze, or
mhm,
so you have all these gauze on your fingers. I mean, did they tell you anything like that to try to? Because you're trying to work with your hands, and if your nails are lifting up and water's getting under them and they're seeping, I mean, you just want
right,
to preserve infection. You know,
right.
all of that different stuff. Did they give you any type of suggestions with
Uh,
regards to that?
Yes, and one other thing too with the there was like some numbness, a little bit of tingling with the Taxol. That was kind of tolerable, but yeah, one of the things that they mentioned was maybe like doing like tea tree oil and maybe like dipping your fingers and things of that nature, like in tea tree oil. And that was one of the things I try to do to kind of help with the numbing and stuff like that. But that was some of the suggestions. I mean, they knew I'm not a medicine person before, even before all this stuff took
Right.
place. I try to look at the most natural way, like a homeopathic way to kind of do stuff. So the things that they kind of suggested for me were more natural. So the tea tree oil helped quite a bit. As far as the separation of the nail bed, it really didn't do too much for that. I mean, it's just the nature of the chemo. So it kind of had like, I guess, run its course. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you had BRCA2. Now, triple negative, I read that in your bio, and I read that online, but can you tell our listeners what triple negative means?
Triple negative means basically you have the HER2, like I guess hormones. My breast cancer wasn't impacted by hormones. So the way that they did my treatment, they didn't have like you hear some people talk about, and the name escapes me right now, as tamoxifen. So my breast cancer wasn't impacted by a hormone. So basically, it was just just something that occurred. It wasn't HER2 negative or positive or anything like that. So it wasn't impacted by that. So usually, after women finish treatment, they usually have to go on a tamoxifen or some type of hormone driven treatment for at least maybe like 5 or 6 years. I didn't have to do that. Pretty much once my treatment was over, I did my wellness checks, and that was pretty much about it. Now, some people, and I may say this, some people may be, a little bit different, but I didn't have to, contend with all of that because of, being triple negative diagnosis.
And again, going back to that statement, everybody's body is not the same. I mean, even
Right,
though I'm my mother's daughter, I mean, we don't respond the same way to the same things. So it's almost a customized ordeal, if I can say that, individualized ordeal. Um,
right.
one of the questions from our audience says, would you recommend breast reconstruction after surgery? Let me first ask, did you have to have that, if you don't mind sharing? Did you have to have reconstructive surgery or a mammogram, or, I mean, not, excuse me, um, mastectomy is what I'm trying
Yes.
to say.
Yes. I did do, I opted to do, due to the diagnosis with the BRCA2, I did decide to go ahead and to remove both of mine.
Okay.
My breast cancer was in my left breast. They removed lymph nodes, but I opted to have a double bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction because at the time I was 43. when I was diagnosed. So of course, I want to make sure that I had something or the start of something, after I had my mastectomy. So yes, I mean, and to each his own. Some women, you have to know yourself and know your body. For me, I knew I wasn't going to be satisfied and content with having the prosthesis or things of that nature. So I did opt to do the reconstruction immediately after the mastectomy.
And that's amazing. I'm gonna get back to that because when you say the prosthetic, Grandma Carrie used to wear a bra that had a prosthesis in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was like, did she have breast cancer? And and all of these things now that we're talking about it, and then what the conversation that we had at our last family Zoom, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
did she have it too? Or was it just the other two sisters? You know. So that's amazing. So when you had to make this decision for the double bilateral mastectomy, just for our listeners' sake, in case somebody out there is watching and somebody who may watch this back or listen
Mm-hmm.
to it later on, what prompted your decision to do that? Now we can say because you have the gene or what have you, but some
Mm-hmm.
people are vain, and so when we look at our breast, that's the first thing we say besides our other part. This is what makes us a girl. This is what makes us woman.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
how did you navigate that change going from having your own to purposefully having them removed to
Mm-hmm.
then having reconstruction? So walk us through that.
That's a tough decision. It's really a decision. I mean, they kind of put a lot of stuff on the table there with the BRCA2. These are your options. These are some recommendations. For me, I'm not, I'm not a big busted person, but I knew that having a prosthesis and me looking at myself every day in the mirror, that wasn't going to work for me just to see nothing there.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the double bilateral mastectomy because I don't ever want to go through this again. So
Right.
that's what prompted my decision to do that. I said, I've had people that have gone through the lumpectomy, and sometimes, it may have been successful. Sometimes it may have, come back and say, okay, we found something else. I did not want to leave anything to chance. So I prayed and I said, Lord, I don't want to ever go back through this again. So at this point in time, help me make the best decision that I possibly can as it pertains to my body. And at that point, the double bilateral mastectomy was the best choice for me. And with the option of doing the reconstruction, it wasn't an easy decision by far. But at that point, I thought about down the road, what if I just do one breast? Could it come back into the other breast? I said, you know what? I'm removing both for my own sanity and my own peace of mind.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. When they did the double bilateral mastectomy, did they do the reconstruction at the same time, or did you have to wait a certain amount of time for healing to take place? How did that look? Because I always wondered what was the process,
The
from one stage to the other.
Right. The process is at that point, I actually had the surgical oncologist and the plastic surgeon. So they basically were in there pretty much at different times. Basically, the surgical oncologist would start the process. So they would remove the breast tissue, and then the plastic surgeon would go in and they would put in what they call expanders. And
Mhm.
these expanders are kind of like balloons, and they basically over time they fill those expanders up until they stretch the skin until you reach the desired um, you know stretching capacity or whatever, so they can go in at some point down the road and put in your implants. Well, for me, I had implants. I didn't have any other options at that point. I know you have a lot of different choices where they're able to use your skin to be able to make a natural breast. Due to my size and due to the fact that I really didn't have a lot of adipose tissue or fat tissue, you know, implants were my only option at that point. So I would go to my plastic surgeon after the surgery was over with. I would schedule appointments with my plastic surgeon, and he would stick a little needle on the side, and he would expand my breast into the desired, capacity. And then that was pretty much about it.
Okay, so well, that's good to know because I'm sure people, if they're watching or they're listening, if they know they have to make this decision, are they going to have to go in twice? but to know that you did a one shot, they were in there at the same time while they were removing one, someone else was in there, putting in the expanders so that they would know that if she wants to be a B cup, if she needs to be a C cup, we'll know how much, we're going to have to do over time to get you to that capacity.
Right.
Somebody's asking, did you have to have a particular nutrition plan after you had your surgery?
Well, I pretty much went in eating healthy. So I think that was one of the reasons why I was kind of able to be okay with my treatment. I mean, even though I was still ill and sick and stuff like that, I kind of went into this pretty healthy. They give you recommendations as far as what they want you to eat. Of course, one thing that they do make it explicitly clear they want you to kind of minimize as much as possible is sugar.
Mhm.
I know cancer is pretty much kind of drawn to sugar. I've never been huge as far as like a bunch of sweets or anything like that, but I did try my best to modify and watch what I ate as far as from a sugar intake. But they didn't really per se give me anything other than, kind of give me recommendations because I kind of went in eating pretty healthy. I wasn't a big meat eater, mostly veggies and fruits and things of that nature. So they really didn't have to kind of steer me, too much in that direction.
So, so I mean, I guess for our listeners, for those of us, particularly in our community, because we are just terrible when it comes to diet. We like
Yes.
fried, diet, and laid to the side. We want what we want. We want our sugary drinks. We want our coffee and tea with, all of these high sugar creamers, and we don't exercise like we're supposed to. And we were talking a little earlier about
Hmm.
um, some of the circumstances or some of uh, the lifestyle habits, if you will, that contributes to breast cancer. And so diet. Outside of being hereditarily, uh, uh, susceptible, our diet is so terrible. And so I think it's important that you said, you know, that sugar is our enemy to
It
cancer.
is. It
You,
is.
and so a lot of us, in our community, I'm not going to say myself because I'm not a big sweets person. Now, there are things that I do like, at least until Tuesday. Have to have surgery on Tuesday. And I'm like, after that, I can't have any more sweets or whatever. But I think in our community, I think we're so used to saying, I want what I want. It's my body. But here's the thing, you only get one.
That's right.
You only get one. So would you suggest, I mean, just from your experience, that someone who has survived breast cancer would become more vegetarian, or just limit their protein intake? I mean, did the doctors give you any indicators with regards to that type of dietary change?
They really didn't. I mean, as far like I said, for me, it really wasn't a means of them telling me because I pretty much kind of went in. I was working out 4 or 5 days a week going into this, and like you said, diet plays a huge, huge factor in that. And I don't want to definitely get into, I'm just sharing my experience. I don't want to get to the whole medical
Absolutely.
rigmarole, but diet plays a huge factor. I went in. I didn't really eat a lot of meat. I'm not a big meat eater. I mean, that wasn't me. I would tell people this. I mean, know your body, know what you're able to eat. You know, I know for me, I'm not a big, steak, beef. I didn't eat beef, no pork or anything like that. But I mean, you have to think and take in consideration not only with breast cancer, but you look at all these other different cancers like colorectal, where you're eating beef and stuff like that, and your body's not able to adequately digest those things or whatever. But like you said, with we as African American people, we want what we want. We want it now. We don't want to modify. We don't want to change. We don't want to exercise. We don't want to eat those appropriate things. But, we have to do that in order to maintain our health, in order to maintain our bodies. But to kind of go back, I'm trying not to steer off on the beaten path, but I kind of did my research, and that's me, the type of person I am. I try to do my research. I did that. I ate pretty healthy going in. Definitely coming out of this, I have definitely been more vigilant about really streamlining a lot of different stuff. I mean, I don't eat deli meat. I don't eat, um, trying to think like a lot. I wasn't big on sugar, whatever. But I try to modify my sugar intake. I mean, I think you can do anything, within modifications.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell people, no, don't eat that, because you deprive yourself of certain things, but at least know how to limit yourself. And when you see yourself getting out there, know how to reel yourself back in. And I think that's one of the things with us as people. We go out there and we go out on a tangent, but we don't know how to say, okay, I'm going to reel myself back in. I've had one cookie. I've had two cookies.
I've had
So
10 cookies.
I've had to, we don't know how to, yeah, we don't know how to reel ourselves back in. So, that's one of the things with our people. When I went through treatment, Michelle, one thing that was very, 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 very disturbing for me in the infusion center, whether it was breast cancer or whatever, people were dealing with, the majority of people that I saw in the infusion center were African American people.
Mm,
That disturbed me to no end. And to see, when I went through breast cancer and whenever I went through radiation, a lot of the women that I was seeing that was coming in like with the later stage breast cancer were Black women. And I'm like, this is so disturbing. And I would hear them say, oh, yeah, I didn't get a mammogram, or, oh, yeah, I didn't do that, or I didn't do this. And I'm like, well, some of this could have maybe been caught
earlier.
earlier on, you
Hmm.
know. So it's just disturbing to see our women go through, you know, treatment, go through breast cancer, and basically have these later stages at an alarming rate than our white counterparts. So like I said, I'm just on here want to definitely preach women, 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 please, please go get your mammograms. I've heard women say, oh, I don't like it because they squeeze, they compact. Would you rather pay for it on the front end and be in a little bit of pain on the front end, or on the back end? Because either at some point you're gonna have to pay.
You're gonna have to pay, absolutely. And this is so good, sweetie. I tell you, because particularly in our community, we make excuses. We make excuses for everything. And somebody's gonna be like mad or whatever, but this is the truth of the matter. We don't take care of ourselves, and then we get upset when something happens, right? And so, me and my mother have, we've made a joke out of it. We call it Pancake Day. Oh, I got Pancake Day because they will, and I'm, without giving all of well, I'm a triple D, and so trying to get that smushed down to like an inch is a whole lot of, let me tell you. And that is that who I'll be in there calling on Jesus. I said, girl, if you squeeze that thing, she said, take a deep breath, ma'am. I said, let me tell you something. I don't have no breath left in me. But I think, you need to look at it not as a burden, because like you said, would you much rather pay for it on the front end, meaning a little bit of pain for 10 minutes, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the back end when you're suffering from stage 4, or, some type of metastatic breast cancer that, metastasizes to all of your major organs, and then you're going to, pass away from it. What is the alternative? And I think we need to think more big picture instead of what I want and what I need in my particular life, because it's not just affecting you.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, we definitely have to, like I said, we have to be, our best advocate. And, for, like you said, again and again, for our people, we want to eat. I mean, there's nothing wrong, even with my mother. I've shown her various ways of how to make different foods. And, we want to eat those things because we don't want to sacrifice taste. But I've made her collard greens, I've made certain foods for her. And I've told her, Mom, I've cooked this for you. It's the healthiest version of what you make, but
Hmm.
I'm not putting all those other things that you put in there. I said, but does it not still taste good?
Hmm.
And she's like, yes, it still tastes good, but we want those things because we don't want to. We feel like if we cook the healthier way, that we're gonna sacrifice taste. But
Hmm.
you can make collards, you can make macaroni and cheese, you can make all these different things or whatever in a healthier way. And I think, and one good thing I'm seeing now, sometimes I'm seeing our people get a little bit better with eating a little bit better. I'm seeing more women running. I'm seeing, especially you know, our
Hmm.
women, because most majority of the time, before we would be like, oh, I'm not going out there sweating because I'm not messing up my hair. But as we as women go more natural, yeah, more
Or go
natural.
like me.
Yeah, go like you. Nothing wrong with that. Go more natural. We're finding more women that are getting out there. Involved in these running clubs. They're involved in these fitness regiments or whatever. I have one of my best friends. she goes and she runs. I mean, and she's such an inspiration. So Sabrina, if you're listening, hey, shout out to you. She is she is a she goes and she runs and she makes time, and she's had a lot of different things that occurred in her life, but she still makes time to take care of her body and to run, to exercise, to go to burn boot camp or whatever. And I'm seeing a lot of women like her do that. You know, they pretty much have formed these different networks, group running groups or fitness groups or whatever. So to kind of hold her accountable and hold themselves accountable to making sure they're staying consistent with, whatever their exercise regimen is. So,
Absolutely.
so she's definitely been an inspiration on that.
Absolutely. I have a number of our sisters who are chiming in saying, I got my mammogram. My appointment is next week. Waiting on mine. It's amazing. My appointment is next month. So it's important that we do this again, whether we pay for it on the front end or the back end. We have got to take care of ourselves. We have children who are depending on us being here,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
spouses who are depending on us being here. And if God's purpose is not done in your life, you can't let him down by being negligent. We
Absolutely.
cannot neglect the call of God on our lives. And I'm not saying you got to be a preacher. I'm not saying you got to be a pastor, but all of us have been birthed in this earth with purpose, and we cannot truncate the promise or the purpose because we won't take care of our bodies.
Amen. Well, I mean, it says in His Word that our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit. So, if God is commanding you to, if He's holding you accountable, taking care of what I've given you, be a
Mhm.
good steward over what I've given you.
Yes,
Making sure that you're doing what you need to do, by getting your wellness checks, going to your physicals and stuff. So he stated that in His Word about being a good steward over our bodies. So I'm
absolutely.
excited. I'm excited about what's to come down the road, and I'm definitely still continuing to be active, be healthy, eating healthy, even more so coming, on the backside of this,
Hmm.
post cancer.
Yeah.
So hopefully your listeners will take some nugget of wisdom from that.
Someone just posted pink power. You see,
Absolutely.
I got the pink flowers and I got my pink shirt on, and we pink power today. Somebody asked the question. So now that you're cancer free and you've gone through all the course of action, is there a maintenance program? I mean, I know we talked about exercise, I know we talked about eating right, but did the doctors, did your oncology suggest any type of maintenance outside of coming in for even more regular checkups? Do you still have to do mammograms with implants? I'm not sure how that works.
Well, at this point in time, I'm a backpedal just a bit. One thing too I didn't mention was I had a hysterectomy, so I had a full hysterectomy as well with the oophorectomy where I had my ovaries removed. So one thing that I did, well, I'm 5 years um, cancer free, and one thing that they had suggested was basically doing like a post survival check where you
Uh-huh.
would kind of go in every 6 months. They kind of check and just make sure everything is good. I don't, as far as a mammogram, I'm not sure how I would be able to do that. I don't know if they have like a digital mammogram or what have, where they kind of do like a little sonogram thing and check. But the only thing they're able to do at this point, since I have no breast tissue,
Mhm.
they just pretty much kind of like just check around like they normally do with their hand. And that's
Right.
pretty much, and they said usually if I were to ever get breast cancer again, for me, they would be able to noticeably see it because it would be a change in color of my breasts. There would be maybe like little pimples or something like that. There would be a strong indicator if something was going on with my breast, since I have no breast tissue.
Right, right. Somebody just posted, you are fearless. Yes, she is.
I
Yes,
appreciate that, but you know what? I appreciate that. I don't take any credit.
mm,
I'm not sure if any of you are out there. I don't put my religious belief, but I am a believer, and there's no way at all I could have gotten through any of this if it wasn't for God. I mean, He spoke to me even when I got diagnosed and told me, you're gonna live, you're not gonna die. And I made little scripture posts and I posted them on my mirror, and I did that for two reasons: so that I could stand on His promises and stand on His word, and two, so that it will force me to look at myself in the mirror each and every day so that I could see that even though I didn't have the hair, even though I didn't have any eyebrows or what have you, that I was still beautiful and that I was fearfully and I was wonderfully made. So, for you women that are out there that are going through breast cancer or concerns or anything like that, I definitely uh, implore you to, if you don't have a relationship with Christ, I hope that you do. Put little notes up there, just giving yourself, words of affirmation, just
Mhm.
stating, it doesn't have to be scriptly based. If it's something, I will live, or I am
Mhm.
fearfully and wonderfully made, or I love me, whatever it is that motivates you. I
Mhm.
had to do that because I know for me, I didn't want to have to keep looking at myself in the mirror and just saying, "Oh, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing I have no hair." So
Mm-mm.
those are the things that kind of motivated me
Yeah.
as well.
Somebody put here, breast cancer is life altering, but not life defining. Absolutely. Someone else put, check your bumps for lumps. Um,
Absolutely.
you go, girl. Jesus is the cure for the cause. Amen.
Yes, he is. And I
They
say
are
my
excited.
I say this, my God is bigger than breast cancer, and
Absolutely.
he is definitely bigger than breast cancer. To your listener that was stating that I'm fearless, you know, I felt like coming into this, I felt like, okay, kind of relied on me and relied on myself, and I was like, okay, I've never been really sick or anything like that. But when you go through something like this, it really changes your perspective. It
Absolutely.
is life altering, yes, but it is it's not the end of the road for you. A lot of people think when they hear, oh, breast cancer, they have made great, great, great strides.
Mhm.
Like I said, I was stage 3 when I went through this. My tumor was, I can't remember exactly the actual centimeter of my tumor. It was a pretty nice sized tumor. Pretty much as I went through treatment, they would go in, they would check, make sure that my, the treatment was actually working. Every single time I would go to my doctor, she's like, oh, she would kind of have a way that she would measure. It's shrinking, it's shrinking. And I equate God
Amen.
to my survival. I still praise God and I still thank Him. It has changed my life. It has changed how I view life. It has changed how I see people. It has changed my relationship with my family, how I interact with them, and I mean it's just changed every aspect about that. And two people. I mean, I had my girlfriends and all that were my support, and I had my network, but my mom and my sister, those were my angels, especially my mother. My mother, I mean, every time I talk about her and I talk about what I went through with breast cancer and think about her being there, my mom never left my side.
Mm.
From treatment to doctor's appointments to whatever I had to go through, my mother was a constant fixture by my side. I mean, she was my caregiver. She took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself. So, I definitely give her props, and my sister Tanya.
Amen. Amen. Um, my husband, he says, tell your story and your testimony. Write a book. We're here to help you with that, honey.
I thought, you know what, Michelle, and it's so funny you say that. I have worked vigilantly with American Cancer Society for the past couple of years with Relay for Life, which impacts all cancer, and making strides against breast cancer. I've tried to do as much as I possibly can with working with those organizations and bringing about awareness. And I have a girlfriend of mine that she's a fellow breast cancer survivor. She and I have done parties, like we call it a pink party. We've done that, and bringing awareness and also fundraising. And she's trying to do some different things with starting her foundation, and have another girlfriend, another survivor, that talked about she and I kind of doing a collaboration on doing a blog. So I mean, I have so many different, granted, yes, breast cancer, I met them through breast cancer, but they have become such dear friends and such motivating people for me in going out there and saying, okay, well, what's next? This is just not the end. God didn't allow us to come through this and just be, quiet. And I mean, to each his own. You have some people that go through breast cancer, and once they're done with treatment, once they're done with that, they put it on the shelf and they don't want to talk about it. And I totally respect where people are in their journey. Everybody's different, and you have to kind of respect that. Everybody's not as forthcoming about information or forthcoming about what's going on with them. So you have to kind of appreciate and respect people for where they are within their journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I certainly have enjoyed this conversation, my dear cousin, my dear friend, my dear sister. Um, it's been amazing. And I just
Thank you.
wanted to remind everyone out there, particularly our men, because we don't talk about this, men can get breast cancer too.
Absolutely.
Do not think that you are you get to skate this one. Men get breast cancer as well. They don't talk about it as much, but men, you need to check your breast as well. I know you think you got pectorals, you think you have, all of this stuff going on, but men, you can get breast cancer too, and end up having lumpectomies and you know I don't know if we can call them mastectomies too, but I just wanted to throw that out there that men, you need to check your own selves as well, and don't slight it because you think it's just a female thing. It's not
Absolutely.
just a female thing. And so as we wrap up, my sisters, there any closing advice you would like to tell our listeners with our last 2.5 minutes, if you could just give some closing advice about breast cancer, we'd be most appreciative.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, dear cousin, for allowing me to come onto your platform and to be able to share. I will just say, know your body, making sure that you are getting yourself checked. If you feel for whatever reason that you want to do the genetic testing, I would implore you to do that. At least that gives you a general idea of where you stand if that mutation runs in your family. Making sure that you are exercising, if that whatever that means for you, if it's walking, running, whatever that looks like for you, at least making sure that your body is active in some form. And also making sure that you are your diet, looking at your diet, looking at the type of foods that you're eating, and just making sure that you are lowering your sugar intake. So that's pretty much the only advice that I have at this point. And again, I thank you for allowing me to share my story, dear cousin.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this has been an amazing and informative show. And these are the type of shows I like to have, shows that affect our community so that we can know what we need to do as a people to be who we're called to be and to do what God has called us to be. Thank you again, my beautiful cousin Tamara, for coming on. Those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching, you can certainly catch the replay on my YouTube channel at Life Matters with Michele TV Official. It's posted every week, or you can listen on sensationalsoundsradio.net. Um, Wherever you want, whether you want to watch it or want to listen to it, you can find it at Life Matters with Michele TV Official, or again on sensationalsoundsradio.net. And I'm looking for guests for next year. I'm booked up until June, so I need, or up until May. So I'm looking for guests from June all the way until the end of December of 2021. So feel free to please reach out to me on my website at www.iam-mij.com. I would love, 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 love to have you as a guest on Life Matters with Michele, where, of course, we talk about what matters to you. Thank you, Tamara, again for joining me. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all our listeners and our watchers, our viewers and our listeners. And we will certainly talk to each and every one of you again on next week. Stay blessed, stay healthy, stay encouraged.